The drama's not done, folks. Microsoft just announced a massive change to the ABK acquisition. While it feels like it's been a minute since we've had any drama related to the Microsoft ABK CMA debacle, you're getting a full scoop of that today, my friends, because Microsoft has announced a massive change to the structure of the deal to acquire Activision to try and appease the CMA. The TLDR of this, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, is that Microsoft is giving up streaming rights to ABK titles pretty much around the globe outside of the EU. And no, that is not a mistake, and that is not, I did not read that incorrectly. Microsoft is really just kind of throwing in, I don't know if you want to call it like the nuclear towel to get this deal done, but they are making some significant changes, and the details of this change really do matter. So, of course, Brad Smith, not me, Brad Smith, the chief legal counsel over at Microsoft, wrote a long blog post, which is worth digging into, and then we got to look at what Ubisoft is saying as well. So, the deal here is that Microsoft is changing who can sell their streaming content after they close ABK. And this is only for ABK titles, not Halo or anything first party that is existing first party. So Microsoft writes, under the restructured transaction, Microsoft will not be in a position to either release Activision Blizzard games exclusively on its own cloud streaming service, Xbox Cloud Gaming, or to exclusively control the licensing terms of the Activision Blizzard games for rival services. This is the deal here. Microsoft is effectively, for a fee, Ubisoft will be paying Microsoft, they didn't announce how much they will be paying, a fee to effectively become the cloud licensor of ABK titles. So what this kind of drills down into, it says, the agreement provides Ubisoft with a unique opportunity to commercialize the distribution of games via cloud streaming. The agreement will enable Ubisoft to innovate and encourage different business models in the licensing and pricing of these games on cloud streaming services worldwide. Interestingly here, Ubisoft will compensate Microsoft for the cloud streaming rights to Activision Blizzard games through a one-off payment and through market-based wholesale pricing mechanism, including an option that supports pricing based on usage. It also gives Ubisoft the opportunity to offer Activision Blizzard games to cloud gaming services running on non-Windows operating systems. What Microsoft is effectively doing is saying, look, Ubisoft, you pay us some money, all ABK titles for up to 15 years, mind you. This isn't like some 3-year deal. Ubisoft can then go out to the market and license these titles to other vendors outside the EU. The EU ruling and EU agreements will all stay in place, so this is only outside the EU. And then they can go to these vendors and be like, look, you can use Call of Duty, you just got to pay us a fee, and then you can stream it cloud gaming only. Remember, this is cloud gaming only. This has nothing to do with games you download. This has nothing to do with PC gaming. This is truly just the Xbox cloud gaming competitor that Ubisoft offers. So this is a really significant change to the structure of the deal. And it does kind of raise the question. It's like, hey, is Microsoft giving up on cloud gaming? We'll get into that maybe a little bit later. But this is really the news that is dropping this morning. So Ubisoft, of course, is ecstatic about this deal. And it makes a lot of sense for Ubisoft because if you read closely to what Microsoft wrote with it, they wrote innovative, effectively, opportunities because they through usage mechanisms basically means that, hey, if people aren't playing a specific game, Ubisoft may not have to charge or may not have to pay money for that, or the vendors may not. And so it's not just a strict, hey, you pay X amount of dollars, you get certain titles on your platform. There's also that usage model, which we haven't seen so far in the gaming industry. It's a little bit more common in, say, like the cloud world, where it's like you're buying bandwidth or storage and that sort of thing, but a little bit different here on the cloud gaming side. So Ubisoft comes out and says, look, we'll also be licensing the games to a range of cloud streaming and subscription services. Effectively, they get to act as the gatekeeper for the future of cloud streaming of ABK titles. That is a very nice position for Ubisoft to be in, basically as a casualty is the wrong word, as a side effect of Microsoft trying to spend $70 billion. So they get this opportunity. Is also, which I think of what is going to appease the CMA, this really makes Ubisoft a tier 1 competitor in the cloud gaming market. Yes, Xbox cloud gaming will still exist, and Microsoft will continue to make modest investments based on the terminology we have seen come out of Microsoft. Like, I don't expect massive investments at this point. And so, yeah, Ubisoft will become a viable player for the long term based on this. Now, what's interesting to me is how did they come to Ubisoft? Why Ubisoft? Well, Ubisoft does have their game streaming service. Also, I think part of it is actually just to keep it out of the hands of Amazon. I am sure Amazon was probably at least on a whiteboard or somewhere saying like who could actually afford to do this and who would be a good partner, and they're trying to figure out who would have the least amount of scrutiny, and Amazon would check too many boxes of their direct competitor to Microsoft on too many platforms. They would probably be scrutinized by additional entities out there like the CMA, say like Amazon's already teetering on that monopoly sort of thing, not necessarily on the game side, but they're a huge company, you guys know what I mean. And so Ubisoft is like the perfect player, it seems like, to absorb this type of thing and can actually be a competitor in the market. So the big fallout here, if you were hoping for an effective and efficient close after the whole thing that happened in earlier this year with the CMA, nada. So this tweet or this image comes from Foss Patents on Twitter, a great follow if you want to stay updated on everything happening with all this stuff. The real date now is actually being pushed out to October 18th. And so, yeah, this is not going to close anytime. This deal is going back to the CMA. They have to review it and do their formal song and dance to effectively say, yes, this is sufficient to appease the issues that the CMA has raised, despite the fact that all the other countries had no issues. But Microsoft was clearly bending over backwards to appease the CMA, to get this done, and to be that good steward and not have to worry about any long-term regulatory issues, at least when it comes to this transaction. Remember that just about everybody else has approved it already. Obviously, it took them a little bit of fighting to get it through the US, but they did. They absolutely did. And so October 18th is the next deadline. Now, technically it could close sooner, but the CMA is all about the formal process. And so there's probably going to be hearings and there's going to be other things. They've got to have public statements and everything else. And so while there was rumors that it was just going to be localized to the UK with EE potentially picking up the streaming rights, it looks like Microsoft has gone much bigger and is just saying, Ubisoft, become our best friend. Let's become partners in this and let's do it. It's a really interesting strategy to see how broad that they are going, because it sort of broadcasts Microsoft's expectation in the cloud market. Now, keep in mind that this is not an agreement that will span till the sun explodes, right? It is 15 years, which is a long time. And if the cloud gaming market does blow up and get really big in between now and then, Microsoft will have some ownership in the very long future, but definitely not in the immediate future, which Microsoft has already signaled time and time again, at least through this process. At least for them, they don't see this as a massive market. So this is an interesting play for Microsoft because it's going to cast a shadow on their expected investments into Xbox Cloud Gaming. It feels like, and this is just more of a gut reaction, a gut feeling, that Microsoft really tried with cloud gaming and they got it to a certain point and they didn't see the numbers that made a lot of sense. And so they're pulling back quite a bit. And that is why they were saying like, look, Ubisoft, you guys want to do this and then we can actually get the content and titles we want in-house. This maybe makes a lot of sense. Now, however, Sony is just getting started really in their streaming stuff, and we're starting to see more on that on their side. And so maybe this market will mature over the next few years, and it'll actually position Ubisoft to be in a great spot to be a cloud gaming competitor, which honestly is what the CMA was really wanting. They didn't want Microsoft to dominate that market as it, in the CMA's mind, continues to grow and mature. And so now Ubisoft would be a third party, relatively independent, but I'm sure Sony's probably somewhat happy because Sony can then buy the licensing from Ubisoft direct, not from Microsoft, and bada bing, bada boom, there it goes. Now, the dragging out of the timeline is going to continue to make things tough because what a lot of us want is to see when Call of Duty and Activision titles would land in Game Pass. Microsoft was hoping that they could get this deal done so they'd have all these titles into Game Pass before the holiday shopping season. It'll be really tight. Imagine if this does actually close, let's just say mid-October, to turn around and get all those titles into Game Pass would be a challenge, because keep in mind, Microsoft cannot tell ABK what to do until this thing has done. Until the money changes hands, they cannot say, hey, start prepping your games to be in Game Pass, because it takes effort. There's not just like a checkbox on the back end. They have to actually set up the title to be in that type of a model where it supports the licensing and checks everything else. It's not a massive lift. I'm not saying this will take years to do, but it's not something that they can just do overnight. It will take a few weeks at best. And then the other big question becomes, Call of Duty is releasing a new title. Modern Warfare 3 is set to release, I believe, in November. And so Microsoft would love to get it done before then, because then obviously they would rake in that revenue of that title sale, but it gets a little dicey with the accounting because right now pre-sales are already occurring and everything else. And so yeah, this is going to continue to drag on. I'm not expecting day-to-day drama like we had during the court cases, but either way, this is not ending anytime soon. October looks like the most realistic timeline when this will finally, for realsies, wrap up. So as always, my friend, if you want to stay updated on everything happening in the world of Xbox and beyond, make sure to keep it subscribed here, because the BS on this channel is me.